Harbor started because the Japanese wanted to be able to trade and get natural resources to take over China and the other islands in the Pacific. So, first they need to take out the U.S. So, on December 7th, 1941, two waves of Japanese bombers attacked the U.S. Navy fleet. Casualties, 2,403 dead, 9 battleships out of commission, and some other ships were like, whoosh, done. The next day, Congress declared war on Japan. Bam. World War II. Explosions. So, you want to know the causes of Pearl Harbor? I think you do. First of all, Japan had a trade embargo from the U.S. that was on them, and they wanted to get that lifted because they needed their natural resources and oil so that they could keep expanding in China and in other islands in the Pacific. So therefore they had to get that lifted. That was the first main cause. The cause of Pearl Harbor was the fact that the Japanese thought if they destroyed the U.S. Navy fleet, they could successfully take the U.S. out of World War II. During this time in World War II, Hitler was bombing Britain and totally killing them, and they were on the brink of surrendering, and that is when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, which sent the U.S. into the side of the Allies, making the war a much more difficult, painful, and deadly war.
Some Axis war objective facts. The Axis powers in World War II were Japan, Germany, and Italy. Japan was the one who attacked Pearl Harbor. A victory for Japan would mean that they would have opened up the whole Pacific coast. Also, if Japan did take and destroy all of Hawaii, the United States wouldn't have been able to fight back towards Japan as fast as they did. Japan would have disabled the American Navy. Japan failed to hit the storage tanks of oil, and they traveled back to Japan because they were nervous about their own ships being destroyed.
Hypothetically, let's say the U.S. had won in the Battle of Pearl Harbor. There are many effects that would happen. First off, the U.S. Navy would be much more powerful to attack Germany, Italy, and Japan in later years of World War II. Second, Japan would be weaker to attack American forces in the Pacific. A hilarious fact about this Allied war objective is that the U.S. saw these planes coming. It was on the radar, and they saw that there was planes coming. It was a new invention they had, but they believed that those planes were American B-20s. I don't know if it was a B-20. I know it was an American plane, and they didn't know that. And they were like, yeah, whatever, let them in. Guess what? Attack Pearl Harbor. Again, I will say, 4,000 casualties. 4,000.
Some keys to victory. It was a partial victory for Japan, and they had a surprise attack on the United States. Japan destroyed many of the battleships, but not all the carriers. Japan thought that if the United States battleships and carriers were all destroyed, that they wouldn't be able to fight back because they didn't have any weapons. One mistake was that the United States thought that the Japan planes were their own. Japan sent negotiators over to meet with the United States officials while the bombing was happening. Japan came in 2 waves. The first wave had 180 planes. The second wave had 170 planes. Both waves attacked Wheeler Field, Hickam Field, Kineo, Bellows Field, and Pearl Harbor. But the first wave added one place. It was called Iwo. As a result of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, there were 8 main U.S. Navy battleships that were either destroyed or heavily damaged. The USS West Virginia sank after getting hit by 6 torpedoes. The USS Maryland was sunk after getting hit by 2 bombs. USS Oklahoma was hit by 5 torpedoes. The USS Arizona and the USS California both sunk after getting hit by bombs. The USS Nevada, the USS Pennsylvania, and the USS Tennessee were all heavily damaged, but All of them were able to be salvaged and returned to the fleet as the United States entered World War II. USS Arizona remains in Pearl Harbor as a national memorial. As of today, is still leaking oil.
There were two outcomes of this attack on Pearl Harbor. One was America's U.S. Navy fleet was partially crippled, which was a great thing for Japan. And second, the U.S. declared war on Japan, and later Germany and Italy both declared war on the United States of America. An interesting story about Pearl Harbor is that after Franklin Roosevelt was looking for a bulletproof car, but because the government was being so stingy and cheap, he decided that he was going to take Al Capone's impounded car, and he said, I quote, "I hope Mr. Capone won't mind." Ha! And that is a hilarious one. You have entered the fun fact zone. Alright, so you're in the fun fact zone. Did you know that there is a crazy conspiracy going on that the U.S. took out the regular ships out of Pearl Harbor and they brought in some old crappy ones because they knew about the attack beforehand, and they hid their good ships somewhere else, and it was a very strategic move in the part of the U.S. Navy.
Some more fun facts. During the bombing of Pearl Harbor, about 350 aircrafts were destroyed or damaged. Before the Japanese took off for Pearl Harbor, they assembled at Tekin Bay in Kuril Islands, and they departed on November 26, 1941. The Japanese fleet arrived at Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. Hawaii and Japan are approximately 4,000 miles apart. That's about 236 football fields. So at the end of Pearl Harbor, Japan has gotten a partial victory. They did successfully attack Hawaii, but they didn't get all the natural resources they needed. And America fought back as a result of their surprise attack. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, 68 civilians died, 55 Japanese died, and 1,178 personnel of the United States Army and Navy were killed. Many people died in the first 15 minutes of the attack. Admiral Yamamoto, upon learning the success of the attack on Pearl Harbor, was quoted saying, "I fear all we have done is awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve."